Tanking has been a polarizing strategy in the NBA over the past decade or so. With the Thunder right now having gone full rebuild mode, the idea of tanking has become popular again. How effective can it really be? That's what I'm going to talk about, using the Sixers and Thunder as examples. Now before we get this video started, as always, if you like this video, leave a like. If you like this kind of content, consider subscribing, and let's get right into it. There have always been bad teams in the NBA. Whether it's losing a star player, bad draft mistakes, or anything else, there always have been and always will be bad teams. But the idea of glorified tanking didn't really exist until the Sam Hinkie Sixers. Being one of the worst teams of all time, the management got fans excited about being bad by promising it would lead to a better future. And with the Sixers on top of the East right now, they definitely are a good team, having drafted superstars Embiid and Simmons. But not all of that is due to tanking. Just the tanking the Sixers did was not very effective. They used their lottery picks to get Evan Turner, Mo Harkless, Michael Carter-Williams, Joel Embiid, Elfrid Payton, Jahlil Okafor, Ben Simmons, Markelle Fultz, and Mikal Bridges in the 2010s. Of all those players, only Simmons and Embiid are still on the roster, and most of them end up being busts. So most of their current team is not really built on the picks they had from tanking. It was built through some trades and free agency signings. But beyond bad draft mistakes, they made plenty of bad decisions, hurting their future by trying to rush their timeline and getting Jimmy Butler and Al Horford. They had to give up a lot of assets that could have made their future even better had they just waited. And now seeing that they didn't even come close to winning a championship in retrospect, they would have been much better off keeping what they had and not going all in for Jimmy Butler, who isn't even in Philly anymore. If they kept all their assets and made a few better draft choices, they'll be a much better team than they are today, and more set up for the future. With Embiid and Simmons entering their primes in the next few years, the team will likely be good as long as those two are good, but they'll always be limited by the choices they made. So they did tank and introduced tanking as a management strategy, but they also gave up a lot of what they built and made a lot of bad draft choices. So for the team who pretty much invented intentionally tanking over a long period of time, they did not do a very good job. That brings us to the team in the process of tanking that so far is looking like it's working. The Thunder this season have gone all in for young players, with the only older players remaining being Mike Muscala and Al Horford. With 34 draft picks in the next few years, they have plenty of opportunity to acquire future stars. And with Sam Presti's draft record so far, I trust that they can use their picks well. They haven't had many lottery picks recently, as they were trying to compete up until the last year or so, but I do think they've been much better drafters than the Sixers, and already have a stacked roster of young players, led by gilgeous-alexander, along with other young players like Lou Dort, Moses Brown, Pokusevski, and many others. They already have a super young roster with a lot of potential, and as long as they don't trade a lot of their players and picks for a star, they're all set up for the future. The Thunder overall are much better set up to tank than the Sixers did. With their young roster already, they're on track to build a dynasty much stronger than the Sixers. But one thing that makes a big difference that's been unaccounted for by most people is effort. The Sixers at times during their tank would be visibly not trying. The players didn't care at all, because the team only cared about losing. The current Thunder roster has young players giving it their all night in and night out. People like Moses Brown and Pokusevski have already exceeded any expectations, whereas a lot of the young players on the Sixers ended up being very disappointing. They're set up to build a dynasty with not only talent, but strong culture. So does tanking really work? It depends. What most people seem to not understand is it takes more than just losing for a few years. You need to commit to your assets and build a strong culture. And at the end of the day with drafting, there's always an element of luck. There are always players who end up being great and players who just weren't made for the league. Tanking can work, but I don't think it's something you should count on. It can be hard being a fan to watch your team be terrible for years, even with the promise of a bright future. And plenty of teams like the Warriors and Nuggets built their own great teams without being bottom of the league for many years. At the end of the day, there's a lot of luck involved in how a team pans out. And while intentionally tanking might increase your chances of lucking out, it also gives you more opportunities to disappoint your fans. So I don't think tanking is a viable strategy. But what do you think? Do you agree with me, or do you think tanking deserves more credit than I'm giving it? Let me know in the comments. As always, if you like this video, leave a like. If you like this kind of content, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.